Here we are, guys. One more race until the summer break. Sad times, a few weeks without F1 after this weekend, so let's make the most of it. Been a very busy day for me today. I've been out and about, but I did manage to catch some of the footage from footage. Like what decade am I living in? Some of the coverage from FP1 earlier. I didn't see FP2 unfortunately, but I've obviously analysed what's gone on in FP2, listened to what the drivers have said, had a look at all the different times. We have a look at the spreadsheet in a second, which is all these are all the times from FP1, FP2. This is my team on screen at the moment. We're going to be discussing my prospects for what team I'm looking at, given the budget, and maybe look at a little budget option in case people are struggling around of the the 103, 104 million or whatever you guys have got. So have a think about that. Just kind of have a general discussion about what I'm thinking for the weekend as per usual. This is what I do every race week. So yeah, if you're not subscribed already, good enough reason to do so, as I do these every races, and hopefully they help you guys a little bit in helping you to pick your teams. Let's get on with it. Let's start off by looking at the practice times. In case you haven't seen it already, this is from FP1, FP2. Have to take into account the fact that Saturday is very likely, looking at the weather forecast, going to be thunderstorms, like 80-90% chance of rain. We may even see like FP3 just be a complete washout. So this could be the only information which we actually have going into qualifying. There's talk of qualifying potentially even being moved to Sunday morning. I don't know if that's true or just random rumours I've seen on Twitter, but it's a possibility. It's happened in the past. So yeah, so FP1, FP2 potentially even more important than usual going into the deadline and picking our teams. So have a look through who's done well. Before the practice sessions, I was anticipating Ferrari to be on top, and they are on top. Both their drivers are consistently doing well. They're both in the top three on both occasions, whereas the Red Bulls are slightly lower down. Max Verstappen still in and about it, second and fourth place. Perez once again struggling a little bit in sixth and ninth. Perez came out in an interview after the session and said like they tried a couple of things and they think they're in a good place. And Red Bull always have that knack of just like flicking the switch, and they get their setup just nailed nearly every time. So I have faith that Red Bull will be fine, but the true pace is still with the Ferraris, and I do think that probably the best plan this weekend, even though the Ferraris scare me because their strategy leads to mess ups, their reliability can lead to mess ups. We saw Leclerc in France drive a mistake leading to the mess up. So having a Ferrari, going hard on the Ferraris this weekend is a little bit scary for me as a fantasy manager. But if we're looking at the pure point ceiling of things, and I do think that going kind of hard on the Ferraris is probably a good idea this weekend. Famous last word. Please don't let me down, Ferrari. Please have good strategy. Please don't have your engine blow up, and please just don't make a mistake. But yeah, I do think the Ferrari is going to be strong. Obviously, very interesting to see the McLaren's been very, very strong. Like, it's not just Norris, but Ricciardo's up there as well. P8, P4. And then in the second session, Ricciardo, who's been struggling the majority of the season, up there in P5, and then Norris in P2. And we see this trend consistently. Wherever Ricciardo is, Norris is always 2, 3, maybe 4 places a bit higher than him. We see it consistently. And from practice into qualifying into general race pace, the McLaren boys are just very, very consistent. Now, there is the possibility that the McLarens have had their engines turned up a little bit and they've just got a bit more power going out. A bit more power output than the other teams, and I think Red Bull in particular may have turned their engine in the opposite direction. So when things are balanced out and we go into Parc Fermé for qualifying, I do think the McLarens won't be quite so fast, but I wouldn't be at all surprised, given the history we've seen so far this season, to see Lando Norris on the front couple of rows. Like I don't think he'll be necessarily fighting for pole, where it kind of looks like that way at the moment, but I think he'll be a little bit further back personally. I would guess in the P4 to P6 region, but we'll see what happens when qualifying eventually happens, whenever that happens. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that Norris is he's doing well up there. The Mercedes, disappointing. Just a bit of a downwards trend from FP1, FP2, and bit negative chat in the interviews from both George and Lewis. Not very happy. They don't understand what's going on. Basically, there was like the radio message where Lewis was like, "What? We're 1.9 seconds down to P1, like with the same tires. Like seriously, like Lewis is just like." He sounded a bit lost and kind of disheartened. So yeah, the Mercedes really don't interest me. Even though they're on that race streak, it's kind of a bit like just avoid. If we're going to pick anyone on the race streak, it's going to be Max Verstappen for me. So yeah, a couple other things before we move on to my actual team selection is to pick out the Hazes, because obviously there's big chat about the big upgrade finally coming for Haz. Kevin Magnussen is the only one who has the upgrade, because the Hazards, they've been looking for months and months. They've been analysing the Ferrari, and now they've basically just copied the chassis from the Ferrari. And I mean, I don't think that's exactly what's happened, but it looks kind of like that. So yeah, it looks like Kevin Magnussen's in the white Ferrari, but the performance is just not there. As you can see, P17, P16, it's not always smooth sailing, as Kevin said himself in an interview prior to the practice sessions. You can't just stick an upgrade on it and all of a sudden you're amazingly fast. Like, you need to work on things. The setup's going to be slightly different, and maybe we'll see some progression if we get an FP3. Maybe we'll see a bit of progression from Kevin Magnussen that will give us a bit more hope if we're going to put him in our teams. Same for Schumacher. So to see them both down here, P17 and 18 here, P16, P17, the Hazards are just not living up to the expectation which we might have had for them. So it's a little bit disappointing. But again, they're so cheap, and as long as they finish the race and get like 10 points, we're kind of happy, to be honest. So, yeah, the other thing of note really was the Alpines. Kind of okay, not exciting. Ocon again, P9, P13, a little bit behind Alonso there, up in P6. But yeah, the Alpines are just consistent. They look like they're still fairly comfortably P4 sort of region. Obviously, McLaren looking strong, so we could see some competition from the likes of Norris in our teams over the likes of Ocon or Alonso, but we'll see. And let's move on to the team selection, because I think there's a couple of different ways we can go about this. We could just go straight in and pick like basically the template. I already kind of have the template. If Norris wasn't in here and we had Carlos Sainz, this is pretty much template for me. If you've got the funds, like obviously if you don't have the funds, then Alonso just moves down to like a Bottas or even a Stroll, for example. If you really struggling for funds, then you can move him down to a Haas driver, and you can have a team like this that is template, and I think that's fine. A couple of reasons why I'm not completely convinced by the template this week. A couple of reasons. First of all, Max Verstappen's on that race streak. Very, very appealing to bring him in. And second of all, the Ferraris just look strongest. And as much as I hate to put all my eggs in the Ferrari basket, because the Ferrari are probably going to fall over and drop all my eggs, but I do think the Ferraris are just stronger, and I kind of, just too tempting. They're too tempting. The big shiny red car, I want it. So yeah, this is the template. It's definitely still an option, and it'll probably score fairly well, to be honest. I think it will score well, and it's kind of a safe option. But if you really want to look to maximise the points, I think we should lean more towards a Ferrari build, and also including Max Verstappen. So let's have a look at what that might look like. We get rid of the Red Bulls. Another reason to get rid of Red Bull, if you've already got Red Bull like myself, is Hackerman's been busy in the last week, and they've gone up 0.6 million. And what's happened? What happens when Hackerman pumps them? Very shortly after, they get dumped. Look what happened. Look what has happened to Williams. Nearly a million. They've lost nearly a million. They're only worth 7 million in the first place, and they've lost almost a million in value. So if you've got this value, if you're lucky enough to get pumped like I have been by the Red Bull, Hackerman pumping him, then by switching them out, you're locking that value in. And I feel like Hackerman might be busy over the August period leading into the Spa Grand Prix in a few weeks' time. He's going to be bored of no F1 to watch, so he's probably going to be tinkering, boosting some people where he can if play on don't freeze the market. So yeah, good reason if you've got Red Bull already to just switch to Ferrari is lock in that value, like lock it in. So yeah, it's at risk basically if you don't lock it in. It's all very well happening at the moment, but it doesn't really add anything unless you lock it in, like I say. So that's a good enough reason for me to just get rid of Red Bull. Let's move on to the rest of the team selection. Perez has looked out of sorts. There's lots to talk about. Red Bull's developing the car more towards Max Verstappen's driving style, and that's leaving Perez a little bit behind. We saw Perez sort of matching Max Verstappen, and we think back to Monaco where he did better than Max Verstappen, won the race. Like, we're thinking, Perez is like on par with Max, and this is fantastic as an option because he can turbo drive and blah blah blah. But he's just fallen away a little bit. I think he'll be fine in the race. I think he'll still compete for podiums, that sort of thing. I think that's fine. But if we're going to drop anyone, then I do think that dropping him for Verstappen makes sense, and we bring in Max Verstappen. We have a team like this, which is clearly way too expensive. So for me personally, this is me maxed out on my substitution, so I can't go for a team like this, and I can't really do anything else other than switching out Norris / Sainz. If I had Sainz already, I would be keeping him. That'd be fine. I'd just downgrade Alonso to a Haas driver, for example. In fact, let me just show you what that might look like. So I could just downgrade, hope Magnussen's upgrade works, and go over a team like this, go really all in on Ferrari. A couple of enablers, and getting the Max Verstappen streak, hopefully. So I'd be happy with a team like this, but it does cost me -10, and I just despise -10, so I'm just not really looking that way, and I might be having the blinkers on, thinking in that vein of thought, but I just don't like -10s. There's so much risk in fantasy as it is. The risk of a DNF is already a -10. Like, there's too much risk to already put yourself on the back foot. Yes, it can pay off for sure. It can definitely pay off on occasion. But for me, I want to try and sort of minimise the risk if I'm already going kind of hard on the Ferraris, which are a risk in themselves. So for me, I've got my actual driver at the moment here is Lando Norris. In fact, let's just go back a little bit. So yeah, in fact, reset the whole thing. Right, sorry about this. Ferrari in, Perez out, Max Verstappen in. So I can either downgrade Alonso to anyone, for example, Lance Stroll, sort of talk of the town at the moment, getting those overtake points. Could go over a team like this. I have exactly enough in the bank for this, and this looks good because Norris should be up there. It gives me quite good Ferrari coverage, gives me that streak from Verstappen. Gives me Albon, who is kind of fine. I expect him to, as long as he doesn't DNF, he should pick up sort of 10 to 15 points. Similar sort of story for Stroll. Hungary is a little bit tricky to overtake. There are definitely opportunities, particularly into turn 1. So we might not see Stroll getting those overtake points as much as he has done so far over the season. But we could see him get the overtake points through other people ahead of him DNFing. We could see him, good strategy, good tyre management. Who knows? Stroll could still get those points. Let's flick it back to here to see how Stroll's doing in practice. P12, P14. We've seen it countless times from Stroll. Wherever he is in practice, he drops back 2 or 3 places. So if he's averaging, if we look here, around about P13, I could well imagine Stroll going out in Q1 like P15, P16. He just doesn't qualify well, and when he doesn't qualify well and he's got a fairly decent race pace car, that's where he's getting those overtake points and getting just accumulating a huge amount of points in terms of fantasy across the season. So it is tempting, very tempting for me, providing I don't randomly lose the 0.1, which puts me out this team out of price for me. A team like this is definitely tempting. Turbo Driver on Leclerc is still pretty easy, even though it scares me with Ferrari. Theme of the video is that Ferrari just scare me, basically. But yeah, I do think the team like this is definitely a consideration for me personally. It all depends on your team structure and whether you need to take -10. Because like I say, if I had gone with Sainz over Norris last week and I had Sainz already, then I could literally just go with a team like something like this and be happy with it, just kind of go all in Ferrari. But yeah, for me personally, it would cost -10, so I'm not looking that way. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you guys can get to that team structure without taking a -10, or if you're happy to take a -10, then yeah, it'd be interesting. So there's another build I'm going to show you, which is also kind of interesting, but also very expensive. But we can supplement budget option as well. So we'll have a look at that in a second. In fact, let's have a look at it now. If we just undo everything. So the team I had in mind, if you've got the budget for it, is we bring in Carlos Sainz. And we bring in, who else was I bringing in? Lando Norris, yeah. So this is the other team I was thinking of. If you've got a really good budget of 108.5, then you can afford this. And I think this team looks really good. Doesn't get the Max Verstappen streak, which is a bit unfortunate. But I do think a team like this is fine. It's like, look at the drivers. They're all should be finishing the top, arguably 6 or 7. And then you've got the Ferraris constructor. I think a team like this is fine if you've got the budget. But I do think still that maximising the Max Verstappen points is still preferable to me. And the other team that I'm considering is going kind of double Alpine, which is another interesting build, which I'll show you just now. So we need to bring in the Alpine driver. We then cut the Red Bulls, like I've already said about cutting them, get that value in there. Also enables us to upgrade a driver into Max Verstappen. And again, I've just got the budget for this, and this is also another very tempting build for me. It doesn't get Norris's points, doesn't quite cover Carlos Sainz as much as I'd like to. It does give me the Ferrari constructor, so Carlos Sainz is kind of covered, and I do think Carlos Sainz is a good pick at the moment because he's really in the ascendancy. But I'm very tempted by a team like this as well. You can't really go wrong with double Alpine. Although McLaren looks strong, I still think Alpine are, they should be competing for anywhere between that P6 to, they should be finishing anywhere between P6, P10 ideally, and that should give you a fair amount of points. You're looking at 15, 20 points. If they exceed expectations, you could be looking at 20 to 25 pointer from these guys. So yeah, I think going double Alpine is fine. You get the streak from Max Verstappen, you get good coverage from the Ferraris, and Albon sort of as a bit of a filler. So I'm tempted by a team like this as well. And that pretty much sums up my thoughts. So yeah, what do you guys think? As always, I'm interested to know. These are the 2 or 3 teams I'm really strongly considering. Like I said, I'm not sure we're going to get an FP3. If we do, it's just going to be a wet one, and we won't really find out too much probably. We'll see. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears... eyes open? Yeah, eyes open and ears. I can never get these expressions right. Just pay attention and see what's going on. Listen to the news. Listen to the interviews of what's going on. Listen to what the drivers are saying. And yeah, we'll sort of go from there, and we'll pick the best team, cross our fingers, hope we have a good summer break, and pick up again in Spa when it all, if it all falls apart in Hungary, then so be it. We'll just have to, we'll commiserate each other in the comments. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. Give the video a like if you like the video, and I'll catch you again soon. I'm sure I'll throw out some videos throughout August. If everyone's kind of bored waiting for F1 to come back, I'll do something of interest. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and have a good weekend. Bye bye.